Thanks so much for being here. We are the All Mountain Podcast. I'm Ingrid Backstrom. I'm here with Camp, and our guest today, we are so excited to have Erin Sprague. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you crushed it. We're off to such a good start.
Okay, we have Erin Sprague with us from Protect Our Winters. And just to give you a quick bio on Erin, she has a super impressive background, so I have to tell you all about it. She started her career in finance and public affairs at the Blackstone Group. She graduated from Stanford Graduate School of Business and Harvard College. She has worked with leaders from Google and Nest to help build climate tech startups, tackling food waste and heat pump adoption. She has, in addition, worked as the Chief Brand Officer at Aspen Skiing Company, the VP of Marketing at Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Sport, and Global Head of Women's Brand and Product at Specialized Bicycles. Whew!
Wow.
Now, she is the CEO of Protect Our Winters. So
Yeah, thank you. I just feel old hearing that. But the biggest takeaway is that I'm kind of a nerd, I guess. So
no way. It's just very badass. So we're honored to have you here. Where are you meeting with us from? Where are you at?
I live in Boulder and I'm here today. We luckily do not have a lot of wildfire smoke like much of the rest of the company or the country when we're recording this. But I'm a Colorado girl in the mountains as much as possible. And I love the running and just outdoor community that's in Boulder.
That's amazing. Well, we'll get to the your POW work in just a minute. But since you did mention running, I have to say, I read that you have the title of the youngest woman to run a marathon on every continent.
I had the title, Records Are Made to Be Broken. But back when I was young, I realized that I wasn't going to be the fastest runner. So I thought, well, maybe I can be the most creative. And if you kind of look at like the way people pursue different athletic goals, I think there's so much creativity in how people show up, whether that's like fastest known times, which a lot of our community does, or like pretty epic first descents, which our POW board chair Jim Morrison just did a pretty big one on Mount Everest for that. But my approach to sport has always been one of discovery and seeing new places. And so I love to travel. And if you're going to run a marathon, it's 26.2 miles and you see like the entire city that you visit or a whole trail system because it's pretty far. And I started running around the world and realized that this record existed. And at the time I was like, I don't know, 22 or something. And so I was like, all right, I'm going for it. So I like booked passage on a ship to Antarctica and we ended up, running all 7 continents.
That's what does running a marathon in Antarctica look like? Do you go to like the station there, the McMurdo station, or where'd you go?
The one that I did, there are 2, believe it or not, but the one I did was on the Antarctic Peninsula, which it's actually one of the closest points that you can get to. You can get to it by boat. We went through the Drake Passage, which is one of the most intense ocean passages that you can take. And the way it works is you kind of get there, and if you have a weather window, you just go. Like there's no like, oh, the marathon's at 9 a.m. It's like, weather's good, get your butts on the line and start running. And they built this course that mostly followed the coast. So it was pretty rocky. It went up on the snow. It's their summer, so the winter in the Northern Hemisphere. And I actually credit the experience. I went in 2006 and I credit it with developing my early interest in climate action because we were on the boat with a bunch of scientists and they were all first super skeptical of a bunch of runners coming to a pristine continent. And they like came around because runners are dorky and we were really interested in their research. So we ended up forming very good friendships, but they were sort of like, we're very skeptical of tourism on Antarctica. And you have to know that this environment is so at risk and it is deteriorating so rapidly. And this was in 2006. So fast forward 20 years later, and obviously, every impact has become more pronounced, but I learned from them the importance of taking action on this now massive issue that's affecting our lives every day.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's incredible. Did they pack the track down, or do you just have to like you just have to post hole, or what? Do
You
they put
just
it on the snow, or you just go for it?
Yeah.
you
So
just go for it.
so
Okay.
logistically, you take the boat over from Ushuaia, right? And then did
Yeah.
they just zodiac you onto shore and you go?
Yeah, they have a course mapped out.
Okay.
When I did it, there were about 100 people. So what ends up happening, that's a really small race. So you end up by yourself most of the race.
Oh wow.
And they map out a course that you repeat a few times that minimizes the environmental impact. They try to stay on rock so you're not, hurting things too much. I think at one point we ran down a runway, which was hilarious. And I was like, did they check if there's a plane landing? I have no idea. And then we kind of went up on the snow and we wore like yak tracks, which are, I think they're designed for elderly people to not slip on snow,
Right.
but they worked really well. So we kind of had these like mini snowshoes on, and a lot of it was kind of like a really gnarly trail run. And then you're just like kind of out there by yourself having this philosophical experience of being in Antarctica and like pain running a marathon, but it's like super cool the whole way. So definitely a bucket list experience.
That is amazing. Was that your
Definitely.
hardest one, or was there a harder marathon in the seven?
Oh no, that was the hardest by far. I mean, it took everyone anywhere from 1 to 2 hours longer than most races just because of the conditions. And the course is marked, but like you're alone. And so you're kind of like not totally sure that you're on course at like a bunch of different times. But yeah, that one was definitely harder. You're on the snow, which slows you down. So yeah.
Wow.
Awesome. Well, thanks for enlightening us on that. That's so cool.
How did you get, to protect our winters? What was your path there? And when did you start?
My biggest passion before PAL was being in the outdoor industry. I just love companies whose objective is to get more people outside. And so I started at Specialized and, helped build women's cycling. That was such an amazing goal. And then I worked on running, which is obviously such a personal passion. And then when I joined the ski industry, that was really when climate change became front and center in not only what I was experiencing, that was already true. Like I was out trail running, cycling, skiing. I was a cross country runner and cross country ski racer growing up. And so, like I definitely was feeling the changes that were happening. But when you work in the ski industry, and look at the industry today, they're coming off of one of the worst winters in history in the American West, at least. And so it becomes a part of your business continuity. And Aspen Skiing Company is a brand with an amazing, original, visionary point of view on what it means to take climate action as a company. And part of their belief that I agree with is that everything has to be systemic and it has to be done through frontline partners that are driving the highest possible scale solutions to the challenge. And that was how I met POW. And so I joined the board, and for a lot of people, their hero at POW is Jeremy Jones, and that's definitely true for me. I'm totally not saying that because he's my boss or anything. He's a total legend. One of my heroes is also Jessie Diggins, the greatest American Nordic skier in history. I know, bow before her. And she was someone who was, using her platform to talk about climate action, someone who was at the pinnacle of her career and felt this imperative to not only succeed in her day job, but to use it for good. And so I joined the POW board, and I just got so obsessed with this challenge of climate change, which is so solvable and yet so entrenched that I just wanted to do more of it full time.
Amazing. When did you start at POW?
About 2.5 years ago. So when I started, we had just passed the most historic climate legislation in history. The Biden administration had passed the Inflation Reduction Act, very poorly named piece of legislation that would have completely catapulted the clean energy economy, better electricity prices, better solutions for consumers for a cleaner, cheaper future. And POW had worked on that. Like, it was one of the big pieces of legislation that the team had advocated for. So I joined POW, expecting this period of, I don't know, like just utopia where like we were going to be able to activate this legislation. And then we had the 2024 presidential election and Trump won. And we found ourselves in a very different reality. And so my journey since then has been one of a wartime CEO, not a peacetime CEO. We have faced over 100 environmental deregulation actions. We have faced an EPA that has stopped protecting the environment. And we have a team that have dedicated their lives to clean air and clean water. And we are facing deregulation and threats at the time when we need this work the most. So I didn't expect to be a wartime CEO, but I am embracing it. And our team is now on a path to drive solutions during the hardest and also most important possible moment for the work.
So how are you guys adapting, besides just trying to find these solutions? I mean, what are you doing to press forward to combat the opposition, essentially?
Yeah, great question. Well, first, we're rooted in our goal, which is we have to stop climate change. And if you think about your lived experience now, for many years, it was our athletes who were kind of out there every day on the front lines, seeing the snow change. If you're someone like Jesse, it changes your race. If you're someone like Jeremy, it makes the conditions that you face actually really dangerous. Now what's happening is our community is facing it every day. I mean, you have smoke in places like Duluth, Minnesota, which was previously described as a climate haven. There are no climate havens. So our first approach is we have to do whatever it takes to solve this problem. The first thing we always try to do to solve this problem is federal action. That is the best possible way. Pass a piece of legislation, drive systemic change to how we consume energy, the cars we can drive, the ways we heat and cool our homes. Climate change isn't this like esoteric thing. It affects everything. So when we look at federal options for climate action, they're very limited right now in 2026. We are mostly playing defense. We are mostly trying to not make it worse. However, there are places we can still play offense. So at POW, one of the first steps we took was we relaunched a community chapter program. And we focused on local clean energy projects. Clean energy is one of the highest leverage ways to solve climate change. By that, I mean solar, wind. These are also cheaper, and they're a source of diversity in our energy supply. So if you have, I don't know, a massive geopolitical issue like an unnecessary war with Iran, you have other sources of energy that you can turn to and use. And so there are so many benefits for these products. So we have found ourselves advocating in local city councils, to state and local utility commissions to advocate for more sources of clean, renewable, affordable energy and fewer fossil fuels. And that has proven effective. In 6 months, we've put the equivalent of a small American city of new clean energy online just by our athletes, our scientists, and our community members showing up to these hearings and advocating.
Oh, that's great.
Amazing. What has been different or surprising about this work at POW compared to your previous work for corporations and whatnot?
It's actually pretty similar. I mean, I think in most jobs, like we're trying to solve really hard challenges. Previously, like one of my goals as someone who worked at ski, bike, and run companies, I was trying to get more people outside. And the stakes of that felt really high to me. Like I worry about people not experiencing the joy of nature or being on their phones all day, which we all know as adults is so destructive, and yet we do it. Like, imagine what it's doing to our children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt this like deep sense of mission in my work. And I think that's true for a lot of people who work in the outdoors. I also feel a deep sense of mission and stakes in the work we do now. I mean, it's probably more obvious now, because if we don't solve climate change, like, I'm sorry, there is not a bunker in the world that is going to be safe from what this is doing to our environment. And we all want clean air and clean water. And so I see these really high stakes, but I also see the ability to build a real movement around that, which is a lot of what POW focuses on. We're trying to get more people to raise their hand and say, yes, I want to be a part of this work.
Is there still an education component to protect our winters?
Well, so early on, the challenges that POW faced were like people even believing that this was an important and credible threat. And I think for the most part, we've overcome that. If you look at public opinion today, 70% plus of people want to see action on climate solutions and are worried about this as a problem. The difference you see today is that the misinformation cycles are really different. So the roles that algorithms and the digital environment plays and how misinformation gets spread is much more sophisticated and frankly, much more concerning. We will often show up to, again, these local city council meetings, and we'll encounter opinions that are just not rooted in fact. I'll give you an example. A couple years ago, we were in Southwest Colorado, and we were working on passing a solar project, and we encountered a group of actually like ski patrol, backcountry guides, people who are like so deep in our POW community. And they were saying, you know, we've been hearing that solar panels cause cancer. And that's like just not true.
Yeah.
And there are sophisticated multi-billion-dollar misinformation campaigns. There is a fossil fuel industry that from the beginning has been driving campaigns to turn people's attention away from something like how great an electric vehicle is to drive, or how important it is to have government level action on this work, not individual action, but big, broad action. And so I just see a difference. Like, there's always going to be a need for education. What I see is a difference in what we're up against and how sophisticated the opposition has become.
It is true. I definitely talk to people of certain generations. And when I talk about, I rapturize about how amazing it is to drive my EV, they're always like, oh, but aren't you just nervous that you're going to, you know, aren't you just worried that it's going to, I'm like, are you worried your car is going to break down? Like, no, it's not. The misinformation is really out there, and it's really insidious.
And it's like, some of this gives me hope. So like, I don't think a lot of people buy an EV because of this like moral imperative. Some people do. We already have those people in the POW community. They're going to buy it because it is a better driving experience.
100%. I love
that
it.
has been my experience.
Yes.
And this is where I feel a lot of hope, because I think it's dark days in climate. And so I want to like come on here and, one, remind your audience that you are not seeing the local successes that groups like POW and many others are having right now. But two, there's such an authenticity in this technology evolution. EVs are better. Solar is cheaper and faster to deploy. So for many years, the movement wasn't winning the economic argument. Like any new technology, there was a period where EVs and solar were more expensive. But compare that to fossil fuels. Oil and gas are things you pull out of the ground. That pricing regime is very different than a technology. A technology, EVs, heat pumps, solar, the solutions to the climate crisis, those are all technologies. Their costs are going to go down over time. Their usage is going to get better and better as the products keep evolving. And so as a consumer, we are going to have the benefits of a better experience and better pricing. And the fossil fuel industry knows this. They're not dumb. In fact, I would argue they're some of the smartest strategists who have, ever pursued keeping their dying business alive. But they're coming to the table with marketing campaigns, with political influence, with misinformation, and that's how they're controlling the narrative. And at POW, in our small corner of the outdoor universe, we're trying to change that. We're trying to take back the narrative. We will never win on money, but we're going to win on two other things. The breakthrough message of just like being on the right side of history. And second, the fact that every single product we need to be adopted, or every single action that like needs to be taken, is becoming better. And people are coming around to that.
That's amazing. Erin for president. Woo!
Yeah, I got my vote.
At least of like a local utility so that I can like fill it with all solar. That's what I would do first.
We'll start there.
Okay, so since you mentioned technology, Anthropic and ChatGPT, they've pledged a lot of money from nonprofits probably to, make themselves look better. We know they're having impacts on the environment. We don't know to what extent that's eventually going to end up, but we know it could be significant.
Well, first, here's what we believe on data centers. They need to be built with renewable energy.
Nice.
It is better for them. It is
Yes.
better for their communities. And what we see happening is there is such an arms race right now that isn't enough of an upfront consideration. The other thing we believe is that deployment needs to be overseen by regulations to ensure that local communities don't have adverse impacts. Data centers don't create jobs. Those jobs go to the big companies. The venture capitalists are benefiting from funding them. So it's not like there's this jobs argument for deploying them. And that's why you're seeing all this opposition in communities. Communities are bearing the cost of the data centers that support that work without the benefits and without a timeline for appropriate environmental review. If there was an environmental review that said these data centers are fine, they're not causing disruptions in an unreasonable way, great. Like then we can all sit down and fight something else. But we haven't seen that because there hasn't been enough time in the speed of deployment that's happening. So what I would encourage these companies to do is to first do that. Open yourself to an environmental review. Second, look at renewables as probably the smartest long-term energy strategy they could have. And third, I would encourage them to join 1% for the planet. That means they give 1% of their revenues to environmental frontline causes. Based on just OpenAI and Anthropic today, there are many more AI companies, but let's just take those two.
Sure.
That'd be about a $500 million investment in frontline environmental action.
Wow.
That's still not enough. Let's just be clear, but it would be a starting point. And what I see that they're just missing is that the benefits of this are going to a very few, and the costs are potentially being borne by the many. And so let's fix that. We have a chance to do it right from the outset. And that's what we believe at POW. I just want to see communities benefit from what has been described to me as a technological revolution. And let's be honest, we're all using AI. We're all consumers. It is a product that could have so much benefit for climate action. Maybe it will help us solve this thing. But what I'm seeing today is irrational behavior and this race to win at the cost of smart energy decisions, community involvement, and protecting things that ultimately are more important, which are clean air and clean water.
Well said. Thanks. Given the current political climate, what gives you hope and what keeps you going in this work?
Our POW team gives me so much hope. This group of like total badasses. Not only can they like climb the hardest thing or like ski down some line that like, makes my stomach drop, they are so committed to the work. There are so many young people who are joining us. We just had like an intern role that was open, and we got this like record number of applications. And every cover letter was, I want to be a part of solving this problem. So the community is alive and well. The kids are doing okay. Like, we're on the right side of history. So we like just have to keep going in a moment when we're kind of getting our asses kicked. And it just requires so much resilience. It's why I think having a team of athletes is really helpful to that. Athletes are used to like losing a lot to get the bigger win down the line. So I get a lot of hope from our like athletic journey, from the way our community is showing up, and from the way I see new constituencies like young people wanting to be a part of this type of work.
That's awesome. What would you say to what would you say to a troll who's like, oh, well, you're a POW athlete, you can't talk about the environment and then also travel to Antarctica and go skiing or go do your trip to Greenland or wherever, like, and also care about climate? What would you say to that troll, and how do you hope that people can combat that type of thinking and those types of like one-off negative, like, oh, well, whatever, they're just like hypocritical because they get to do what they want? And yeah.
Ingrid, are you on our social channels right now? Is that a live post? Because we get that post every day.
I have a feeling Ingrid's gotten that one before. Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking for a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. We get those posts every day. And I would say to this person, you are missing the forest for the trees. We all exist in an imperfect society that was built on fossil fuels, an energy source we didn't choose. And honestly, at first, didn't know the cost of using them, which is climate change. Climate change is the cost. And now what's happening is we have wasted decades knowing the cost and not doing enough about it. And so now we're in this position, and this is a fossil fuel company led argument. They will often say, you can't be an advocate because you ride a plane, or you can't afford an EV yet, and that's why you don't have one. So we have a belief at POW, which is imperfect advocacy. Do what you can in your life to make the best possible decisions. Live by your values. I was able to get an EV this year. Something like, replacing all of my heating and cooling to heat pumps isn't feasible for us right now. That's okay, but it's on my list for whenever we can do it in the right way. That's why we have to look at our energy systems. It's why climate is also so hard. Everyone wants to just like take an action, check the box, and be done. You don't solve it through the little things you do. We solve it through changing the sources of energy that our existing systems use. Like, you want to change a light bulb in your home? Absolutely, do it. But the most important thing is actually who's making the decision for what source of energy goes into turning on that light bulb. That's the systemic decision. And so at POW, our belief is, you bring people together, build this movement, build cultural and political will, and then you have an opportunity to pull some of those levers. Then political leaders are listening. The ways we show up in our communities really matter in that too. Local officials listen. And that's how you get to those higher level of powers as an individual.
Amazing. Thanks. Okay. Well, there's been talk of climate hushing, like kind of a reluctance to talk publicly about climate change for leaders, politicians, like almost like a backlash. Like, it was so talked about for a while in the politics of, maybe 8-10 years ago. And now there's almost a backsliding with regards to climate dialogue. And I'm wondering to what you attribute this, and how do you think we can start making it part of the larger conversation again?
There's absolutely a backsliding. It's data backed. Let's start with the press. There's been a 40 to 60% reduction in just the mentions of climate change. Whole climate editorial teams and desks have been fired. There is just a total retreat from talking about what is one of the defining issues of our time. It makes no sense. The second thing we're seeing is that in companies, many companies who were all in on climate change, emissions reduction, net zero, being a part of this movement a couple years ago, have gone more quiet. Like, that is a fact. I attribute it to fear. And ironically, just like with journalism, like journalism needs to surface the most important issues of the day. This is one of them. Brands grow by what they believe in. They grow and they matter because they look at something and say, this is what we believe or we don't believe, and they step forward with that position. Look at the most iconic brands in the world. Patagonia is a great example in our space. They have always believed in one thing, which is environmental conservation. And they have always stood for that, and they have built a strong brand around it. And I think what happens is in companies, I've experienced this, you're not living on the front lines, you're living in strategy decks, and you see a risk. And part of your job as a leader is to reduce risk. But I would argue if you want to matter to especially young consumers today, you need to have a position. Donald Trump has a position, and he is unafraid to say it and do it. And that is partially why he has resonance and why he has been successful. And so my call to action to companies, to individuals, to anyone who wants to build a platform or wants to build influence is to, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, believe me, I struggle with this, is to go out there with your point of view and what you believe, because that is actually the only thing that matters.
That's super helpful and inspirational, because you see companies, like I just read a New York Times article the other day of all the companies that are just quietly like, oh, actually, we're not going to reach our goals, and sorry, like basically just totally backsliding on all their goals. And the companies that have made it part of their brand and led the charge, those are the ones that you see it reflected in their bottom line.
100%. Our incentives are so backwards. And like, think about these companies, right? Think about a public company. They're trying to live or die quarter to quarter. That is actually the job of their executives. And yet, transformational change happens on a multi-year timeline. And so they're trying to survive the street. They're trying to keep their jobs. I mean, it is such a unsettled time for leadership. And what we actually need is a transformational commitment to excellence and growth over time. So many of our structures are just set up to not support this. It's one of the things I've loved about being in a nonprofit. Coming from a mostly for-profit background, we feel so liberated from the constraint of short-term profitability. And so we can look at, okay, what do we want to achieve in 10 years? And how do we make that happen? And that is a gift that I don't take for granted. And we really have to live up to that at POW.
Awesome. I hope outdoor companies are listening to you.
Do you think, I mean, you're very optimistic, which I'm loving. Are you seeing more organic growth to support these initiatives?
Well, you can look at our donor base. It's grown 20% in the past 2 years. One of the really sad parts about what's happening kind of in our government is that it has galvanized the opposition. So because there has been such an extreme perspective on environmental deregulation, we've had a lot of people step forward and say, I want to do something.
Right.
The other difference we've seen is a lot of interest in advocacy. Advocacy is not something that's very well understood. Essentially, it is using your influence to drive a big, hard outcome. That is not as measurable as something in the corporate sector. Often we work for years, turning people out to local initiatives, testifying at hearings, showing up and lobbying in DC, and you might not see the actual outcome of that for a while. And that can often be frustrating to people who work in settings where, they're held to an every 3-month goal. And so something positive that we're seeing is a lot more curiosity around advocacy as a lever. And advocacy is not necessarily activism. A lot of people also make that mistake. Like, we're not out, striking every day. We do not believe in violence or destruction. We believe in a pragmatic pathway to solutions. And so we're seeing people show up for that. And that has also been a really positive evolution.
Well, let's keep going on that. So if we're seeing an evolution in advocacy, what about specifically with the ski and snowboard community? Are we seeing more there because of the current, especially the last winter that we had, which was terrible? Is that helping to motivate things? And how do we keep that going? How do we get more interest from our ski and snowboard communities?
I think at the company level, it's a little mixed.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a lot of companies who show up on climate action and seek to support it. Mountain Collective is one that's been a long-term POW partner. Altera, Aspen, many of them also work with other groups, which is also great. Think about the position of a ski company executive right now. This used to be me. They're trying to drive skier visitation,
which is down.
The sport is not growing.
No.
Their affordability challenges, whether that's in their lift ticket prices, their hotel stays, or even the ability to have their own staff live in the place they work,
right,
is such a deep-rooted challenge. Meanwhile, all of the CapEx that these ski resorts rely on is getting dated. You need to constantly improve the experience, new lifts, new restaurants, renovations, things that are long-term capital intensive. And the risk of climate change is not like a future thing. In the past 40 years, we did this study at Aspen, they've lost almost a month of winter. So your beginning and end of your season is getting compressed. And holiday season is everything at a ski company. It is so important to nail that week. And so first, I have a lot of empathy for what our ski leaders are facing, probably because I've sat in that seat, as I said. And second, they do have an imperative to take on climate change that is greater than most other companies. And so we really welcome them in. We try to be a frontline partner to their work. We've had many of them come to DC and lobby with us. It's so interesting. They have the most authentic position. When they come, all the legislators are like, oh my God, it's crazy. Their businesses are being directly threatened by this. Now we're also talking about the summer because of what wildfires. I mean, resorts are burning down.
Yep.
It's insane what's happening. They're all trying to build summer businesses. So I think first we try to be a partner that can meet them in this, there is a true diversity of challenges here. And we want to be the partner that helps produce the climate solution for them because they all need it.
And we all need it too. So we need them to survive.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
we do.
Where you see the most momentum and energy is among the skier audience. So a lot of people are joining POW, oh my gosh, the number of emails from this past season and just how bad it was.
Yes.
People who are like, I don't understand climate change at all, but I'm going to join POW. And that's actually exactly what we want, because we
Yes.
need to grow the movement. We need people to build the power to drive this change. And so the more people I get who are like, I love to ski, I don't really understand climate change, I'm joining, that's actually one of our best possible outcomes.
So that is organic growth.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good.
Like we have a lot of people coming in. We're also seeing a lot of our online engagement grow. And,
Okay.
you know, sometimes it's hard. Like people like I
Do you
sit
mean
around
like
all
social, or what do you mean online
social.
engagement? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Social. You know, I sit around all day and like think about climate change. I am like not fun at a cocktail party anymore. But a lot of people don't, and we have like a really good empathy for that. So we have made sure that we don't try to feed them a 5-course meal. We give them a snack as we bring them in, and we give them small ways to activate and hopefully launch a much bigger climate journey for them.
Yeah, I hope so.
We're wrapping it up, but
Yeah.
you have 2 kids. So how do you have meaningful conversations with them about climate change and your values without trying to scare them or lose hope for their future?
They come to me with questions. It's amazing. My kids are 6 and 8, and they so deeply understand like their connection to the environment. It's one of the most beautiful things about children. They understand play, imagination, like pure non-social constructs, right? And so they love nature. They love skiing. They love just like being outside. And so they'll ask questions like, you know, why can't we see the mountains today? Which like normally you can see the Flatirons anywhere in Boulder. And so their observations are so intuitive. And when we talk about climate change, you know, I like know too much to be like helpful to children, but we talk about it at this like really almost soulful level where they're like, but mom, like, who wouldn't want the air to be cleaner? And I'm like, yes, that is exactly the right question. Maybe kids should run the world. And this is also what gives me hope. Like, if we could just hold on to that childlike joy and wonder across so many dimensions of our lives, we would be so much better off. So we have conversations that are real, but I would say happen at a more soulful level. And I think they also feel really proud to be in a family where environmentalism is just a part of our value set.
That's great. All right. One last question. We've got the midterms coming up this year. What can people do to take action to help protect our winters, all of us skiers who love winter, fight against this common enemy that we currently have?
The most important action anyone can take on climate change this year is to vote. And sometimes when I tell people that, they like look at me and they're like, no, surely it's to like compost, right? I'm like, no, it's to vote. The elected officials we have are the ones making decisions about our energy supply, about our environmental protections, about all of these things. So the first action is to vote. The second action is to tell 3 friends to vote. There's a lot of research that people respond to peer pressure. If they know that someone they admire is voting, they are more likely to vote. So it's why we deploy most of our famous athletes at POW to say that they're voting, because it really does influence behavior. And a lot of people don't know this. Who you vote for is not public, but whether you vote or not is public. That is public record that anyone can look up. So, you know, I've looked up some ex-boyfriends who did not vote. And I'm like, ugh, thank God I avoided them.
Red flag.
So,
that's a big red flag if you don't vote.
red flag, not
Definitely.
beige, not yellow, like dark red.
Yeah.
Love it.
So, yeah, so just keep that in mind. We run a campaign that's designed to get people to vote. It's actually very easy now to understand where candidates stand on climate change. Do that research and pick a candidate that you believe in, that you think is going to create a better future, but make sure you get out and vote.
Yes, and there are a lot of great local organizations that will give you just like their recommendations. Like locally here in the central Northwest Washington, we have a great organization that'll just tell you who, if you're a climate advocate, if that's what your issue you're voting on, here's the people you should vote for. They make it really easy for you. So.
Yeah, I'll also give a shout out to a group called the Environmental Voter Project. We're going to partner with them. They do big voter outreach efforts. So we do a lot of work with them. We do phone banks. We go out in communities, just convincing people to exercise their right to vote.
Amazing. Wow. Well, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Erin. It was super educational and inspiring.
Yes.
And hopeful to
Yes.
get to talk to you and hear that we have smart people, adults in the room like you, who are doing their best to help stop climate change.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, such an honor. Like, I love the conversations you're having with the mountain community. Maybe we can take some turns together during what hopefully will be a great winter.
Definitely.
We're trying to do the work to make it happen.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
We'll see you on a powder day, hopefully.
Yeah. Look forward to it. Thank you again so much for doing this. This has been great. And yeah, it's the most hopeful I think I've been in a while, Ingrid. It's really, she is inspiring. I love it. So
yes. Awesome.
Thank you so much.